The Hard Count is presented by BetMGM. As y'all know by now, we've teamed up with BetMGM this college football season. We'll be using their lines to make all our picks, and we'll have special offers for all of you each week. Now, when you join BetMGM, you get access to a variety of parlay selection features like same-game parlays, live betting options, and more. If you haven't signed up yet for BetMGM, use bonus code HARDCOUNT, and you'll get up to $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how that works. 1, download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code HARDCOUNT. 2, deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game. Step 3, you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure you use bonus code HARDCOUNT when you sign up. Let's make this college football season 1 for the books. Let's make it legendary. Let's get to the show. Welcome into the Hard Count, the show for college football fans that hate the player but love the game. It is Tuesday, December 9th, 2025, last one on the face of the planet. I know emotions are running high right now. We got a lot of people feeling disgruntled. A lot of people also on the flip side of that are fired up because their team made the college football playoff. I think changes are coming to the playoff, not like in a couple of years, not in like a decade, like next year. I think we'll have a very different looking college football playoff. I'll give you my take on that here in a matter of moments. But if you've watched this show before now, you know, according to, or rather over the offseason, took a dip in the voicemail box world. Put out our number, said 629-888-3931, asked y'all to hit us with your college football playoff takes, whether it was a matchup or whether it was just a grievance that you wanted to file against the committee. We're here for all that. It's college football therapy on this side of things. So we got 5 different voicemails I want to go through together here, but before that, we'll get to the changes. First things first, if you're new to the show for the college football playoff run, welcome. This is a show for college football sickos by college football sickos. So if you're watching full college football game reruns during the month of March, you're just like us. Welcome. Make sure you're subscribed. As always, the Hard Count presented by BetMGM. But let's dive in, shall we? Playoff changes are coming next year. That is not a fact, more of a projection and a prediction, and all tied together with above what I would like to call common sense. I think you're getting not 1, not 2, but 3 different changes for next year's playoff. Let's jump into them. The first change you're going to see is the playoff expanded to 16 teams. That is my prediction. It's also a projection. Listen, it's a perfect storm. It is a perfect storm because January 23rd is when all the bigwigs are going to get in a room and negotiate what next year's playoff is going to look like. The contract for the 12-team playoff expires after this season. So next year's playoff, whether it stays the same or not, again, it won't stay the same, but if they were going to keep it the same, they would have to get in a room, sit down, put pen to paper, and make that a reality. The reason why that's not going to be the reality is because you have a lot of people now in the most recent sample size before renegotiation that are pissed off. Listen, those people that are pissed off are pretty powerful. Not to go crazy in the alliteration game, but we make no apologies for it. You got BYU thinking they should have had a chance to be in. You got Notre Dame absolutely thinking they should have been in. They voiced their own frustrations. You got Greg Sankey saying on the SEC Network before the SEC championship game, hey, we think we should have 7 teams into the college football play. We think Texas and Vandy should both be in. So you got a lot of people with a lot of power making their case to be in the college football playoff. You know what's going to happen? They're going to say, okay, you think you should have been in? We'll make sure the next time that we have a college football playoff, we give you a couple extra spots, and we'll expand this thing to 16 teams. Now, the addition to all of this, probably the most obvious reason why they'll expand to 16, is because it gives them the opportunity to make more money. Now, I got more thoughts on this a little bit later in the segment, but the long and short of it is, when you play more games, you get more eyeballs on your TV. When you have more eyeballs, you get more money. When you get more money now, you get more power, which kind of leads to this next idea. The G5, the next change you'll see here, is going to get a guarantee of 1 bid in the future of the college football playoff and no more. Remember how the verbiage was for this year's playoff with 2 G5 teams in the college football playoff. You have the 5 highest-ranked conference champions. There is no, okay, 1 bid for the SEC, 1 bid for the Big Ten, 1 bid for the ACC, and 1 bid for the Big 12, right? That's how I think a lot of us assumed this would go, but that wasn't what the verbiage was. The verbiage was 5 highest-ranked conference champions, meaning, based on what we have in the playoff, it could be the Sun Belt and it could be the AAC. Okay, now I have to imagine, going back to the powerful people that are frustrated right now, they're going to close that loophole. Okay, I think they thought, like we all thought, that the 5 highest-ranked conference champions would be the Power 4 plus a G5. Didn't go that way. They're getting some guarantees. They leave them with some guarantees. Notre Dame's AD is frustrated. He's going to get some guarantees. Same deal with Greg Sankey. Again, going back to this whole idea. If money controls this thing, the money lies with the big brands, lies with the big conferences. They are the ones sitting at the negotiating table with the most cards. So when you're talking about who has the most cards, if the SEC doesn't want to play with y'all, you're in deep stuff, or ACC. You're in deep stuff, Big 12. So when that whole conversation progresses, again, the SEC is kind of dictating how this whole thing is going to go. In the same way, I think Notre Dame's holding a fair amount of cards, not as much as the SEC or the Big 10, but the bottom line is I think there will be some verbiage in this new expanded playoff of next year that will essentially guarantee Notre Dame a spot in the college football playoff if they find themselves in the spot they were in this past season. Just so we're all aligned there. Now, my take on this whole thing, as you expand the playoff and you allocate more spots, I said this many times, but I'll say it again. It's a slippery slope to expand the playoff and place more value on that because you can't keep the playoff as valuable as you want it to be and keep expanding that value and then keep the value of the regular season the same. Like, we're going to get to a point here. We got 3 lost teams in the regular season making the playoff. We got 4 lost teams that have to imagine to keep expanding this thing, making the college football playoff. That's not what this was all about, man. I keep on saying this. The regular season is college football's greatest natural resource. You keep chipping away, you can't put the genie back in the bottle. I mean, as we said it before, you put a roller coaster in Yosemite National Park, it'll make money. It'll get people into the national park, but you can't take that thing out and keep the natural resource that was Yosemite intact. Okay, so just fully aligned there. The G5, they will have a guaranteed bid, but there will be no verbiage where you get 2 G5 in if the chips break the certain way. It's not going to be that way. The powerful people in Notre Dame, the SEC, heck, even BYU have to imagine, they will make sure they get some guarantees about their future playoff spots. So the 2 changes so far, 16 teams and only 1 bid guaranteed for the G5. Have to imagine in hand with that, Notre Dame will have some verbiage that essentially guarantees them a spot. Now here is going to be, I think, potentially the most jarring change that we see next year. Didn't conference title weekend feel a little bit weird this year? I think it did. Not to say that we didn't still enjoy it, but I think next season you will see conference title games become conference play-in games. So instead of having a 1 versus 2 matchup for your conference champion, it will be 1 versus 2. Y'all made, the top of the conference at the end of the regular season. Your reward is rest. We're going to have 6 and 3 play for a spot, and we'll have 2 and 4 play for, or 3 and 5 play for a spot, rather, if you're tracking. Bottom line there, they're trying to make it a world where if you're doing auto bids in relation to the college football playoff, you're going to play for those automatic bids on the last week of the regular season. Again, more TV inventory, you get more dollars out of it if you're the conference, but you're also taking your lead racehorses and taking some tread off the tires there by having 3 play 6 and 4 play 5, if you're tracking right there. So those games will be conference play-in games for the college football playoff as opposed to the conference championship. There's 2 reasons. One, what I just said. Most importantly, it's about rest. I mean, Ohio State and Indiana carried the football 31 times against Ohio State. That's more tread on the tires. Now you got to buy in the college football playoff, but you also beat your roster up a little bit. Georgia, I mean, they had 41 carries as a team against Alabama. Again, they won the football game. You got to buy to get back healthy, but there's no way to take that physicality off of your body when you play in a conference title game. Like, it's more tread on the tires. You can say whatever you want about it. I think Kirby Smart has done a phenomenal job saying, we'll play you anywhere, we'll take whatever, we don't care, we're a physical football team, but those hits still hurt. You still got to take Advil after the game, brother. There's no way to spin it in a positive when your team is taking more hits. So your reward for winning your conference in the regular season will be rest and ideally now less tread on the tires for the college football playoff. Now, secondly, I think that the conversation around Bama and SMU the past 2 years playing in their conference title game and having their college football playoff future more or less jeopardized going into Selection Sunday in the minds of a lot of people, I think that's scary enough for those conferences to say, you know what, we're good on all that. We're cool. We're not going to have a discussion around Bama losing 28-7, and then you have half the college football world saying, well, Bama looked terrible in the conference title game. Get them out of there. I understand it didn't hurt either SMU or Bama. I get that. But I think that it being even a thought for some people, and I have to imagine it was at least whispered about across the college football playoff committee, I think that will be enough to deter everyone to say, you know what, if it's going to be a potential data point that impacts our chances of getting more teams in the college football playoff, We're good on all that. We're not going to live that way. So honestly, when you get to auto bids here for a 16-team playoff where you give 4 to the SEC and 4 to the Big Ten and divvy up the rest across, however you want to do it, we'll see how much the committee even has power. But I have to believe now, rest and the idea that your team could be negatively impacted by playing in the conference title game in the minds of some, I think they just say, you know what, forget all that. We'll have a conference title playing game, and y'all go ahead and live that way. We'll keep our top 2 racehorses with a little less mileage. Now, the solution everyone's screaming for, if you don't like the direction of college football, if you don't like these changes, if you don't like the SEC holding more cards, is we'll get a commissioner in there. Get a commissioner in there, someone who has the best interests for college football at heart and not the best interests of their conference. Because honestly, my take on this has been, I don't blame Greg Sankey or Tony Petitti for being out for the betterment of their conference and not college football. As a college football fan, I'd like for someone to be on the front line screaming for the best competitive balance for the sport or whatever's best for the sport or protecting the pageantry of the sport. But the reality is, if I'm Greg Sankey, my allegiance is to my conference. If I'm Tony Petitti, my allegiance is to the Big Ten. I'd like to see college football in a good place, but my job is to do right by the SEC. So everyone's saying we need someone who's running this massive company that is college football to be in charge and to lead us down the right direction. And I hear you, I understand that. I'm saying the same exact thing, but here's the next question. Who's hiring that person? There's no business in charge right now. The NCAA is certainly not in charge of college football. There's no governing body to hire a college football commissioner. And so in hand with that, who would be best suited to hire a commissioner? Probably the people with the most power right now, right? Sankey and Petitti. You think either of those guys are willingly giving up power? Hey, I more or less right now run the sport but have the job title to benefit my conference. I'm not giving you my cards. Why would I do that? It makes 0 sense. So if those individuals decide that they want to do something like that, more power to them, and I'd be here for it. But that's kind of the tricky spot in this whole discussion around where college football is right now. Yeah, we need a commissioner, but who's going to be the person to go out and make that hire? We'll see what happens. But again, to recap it here, you'll have 16 teams in the playoff next year. I fully believe that. I think within that, the G5 will have one guaranteed spot and nothing else. The big boys with a lot of viewership behind them to go play cards with this negotiation strategy will leave with guarantees. Have to imagine, again, that's 4 for the SEC and 4 for the Big Ten when it comes to auto bids, and the rest disperse however they see fit. Conference title games will become conference play-in games for the college football playoff. And as much as I love and adore conference title weekend, I do think that the conference play-in games will provide some good juice as well. So those are the changes that we see coming. Let me know your thoughts on those in the comment section. But regardless, I think that's kind of where we're headed in this whole discussion around the playoffs. So if you hate the playoff structure right now, hand up. I hate the playoff structure right now. I don't want to see 16 teams, but I think the playoff structure right now is kind of whack. Changes are coming, and those are the ones that we see on the horizon. So before we get to the voicemail box, there was one voicemail that we probably got north of 70 voicemails from y'all. So we appreciate y'all dialing in and letting us know your thoughts on the college football playoff and the matchups and your takes and all that. That's phenomenal stuff. Y'all drive the show. There was one voicemail we got that dwarfed the others in terms of a topic, and it was some version of, hey, Alabama got into the college football playoff. That ain't right. Hey, why is Alabama not getting dropped, but BYU gets dropped? How does that work, JD? That was the number one grievance. So without picking out one specific voicemail, I just want to answer the Bama college football playoff conundrum right now. Now, if you've watched the show, we never wavered in our take. Bama, even if they get thwacked in the SEC championship game, which they did, -3 yards rushing, they are not missing the college football playoff. We got called everything. SEC shill. We got called Bama homer. We heard all of it, brother. We heard all of it. In the end, what were we? We were just right, but neither here nor there. We keep talking about Bama with 3 losses, and I hear that, I understand that, but the third loss came in the conference title game, right? Okay, we'll talk about that here in a second. You know what we don't talk about enough? 10-win Bama. Bama with 4 ranked wins in a row. Bama, who was the SEC regular season champion now. Now, again, you got embarrassed in the conference title game. Georgia, walked into your living room, spit on your ottoman, ate your food, did whatever they wanted to do, brother. Whatever they wanted to do. But the fact remains, Alabama, in the context of the regular season, which we still value here in the world of college football, Bama was the best in the SEC based on how the tiebreakers broke and all those things. So the the conversation around Bama 10 wins doesn't get nearly enough juice. But if you want to live on the 3-loss side of things, we can talk about that too. Here's my metaphor for this whole discussion. Picture you're taking a class, and you have an A in the class, right? You have earned the right, according to your teacher, to take one more test. Hey, listen, just you and me. Little Johnny over there has got an A-. What a loser. You're good enough to take this final test. You want to take it? Heck yeah. Got a chance to take another test. I already got an A in the class. Let's do it here. You fail that test. Fail it miserably. Fail it so bad, you actually rush for less than 0 yards in front of everybody. Everybody watched you take the test. You get embarrassed. You get a C- now. What? I took an extra test. How am I getting a C-? What about little Johnny? Little Johnny still got the A-. He didn't take the test. How does that work? How do I have a lower grade in the class after taking a test that nobody else in the class took? That doesn't make any sense. So I understand we want to live in this world of they got 3 losses, they got embarrassed. I understand that. I hear that. But quite frankly, I don't have any energy for it. It doesn't make any sense. We still saw Bama go and win 10 football games and win 4 games in a row against ranked teams, one of which being at the team that embarrassed you in the conference title game. So I'm not dismissing it, but I think the idea they shouldn't be in the college football playoff because they took an extra test and failed it, that to me makes no sense. I'm not here for it. And I think that when we let the dust settle, the most logical thing prevailed, which was Bama being in the college football playoff. Now, here's the 2 major gripes I hear. One is, well, JD, why does BYU drop and not Alabama? And we could have a discussion around how those games looked and the way that Texas Tech beat BYU twice. What I think really happened was I think BYU got caught in the crosshairs of the Miami-Notre Dame discussion. I think the committee made a mistake with Miami where they ranked them in that first ranking, having them 18. Miami kept winning. You got to a world where Miami was 12 and Notre Dame was 10, and BYU's just chilling there at 11. They lose the conference title game. The committee's like, well, we got to fix this mistake. Sorry, BYU, you're not in the playoff anyway. We got to make a move here. And so, me personally, I would have probably just kept BYU at 11. If you're not making the playoff at that point anyway, Notre Dame, you go back to 12. I get it's funky. I get it doesn't make a ton of sense, but it would have been a way to save face for the committee in that sense. I don't think it was a thing where, like, Bama got this special treatment for not dropping and BYU dropped because they lost by more against Texas Tech. I don't think that was the logic. If it was, the committee does what they want to do. It's a group of 12 human beings that make mistakes, evidently. I think it was more Notre Dame Miami fueled than it was Bama fueled. The second thing, though, that I hear is that the committee is inconsistent, JD. JD, we've seen precedent from this before. Teams lose their conference title game. They get dropped out of the college football playoff. What is this committee doing? Y'all, this committee is not previous committees. This committee's got like 7 new people on it from last year's committee. Heck, we've seen committees drop a team out of the college football playoff in the 4-team era when they lose their quarterback. Shout out Florida State and Jordan Travis. This committee, with Ole Miss without their head coach, got moved up a spot. Like, this committee does not care about previous precedents. So while it doesn't make sense all the way given previous committees and the way they've operated, I just want to stress that this committee is not other committees. All right, so we can't use that logic around what they've done previously for a brand new set of human beings in a room talking about college football. Now, here's one more thing I want to say, and this is kind of ugly, so just bear with me. SEC bias is a real thing among college football fans. We all know that. You all have your group chats. You got the Bama guy and the Georgia guy in there. Maybe that's who you are. You're definitely carrying the flag for the SEC. It's no different from other conferences. Like the Big Ten's got the Ohio State guy in there, the Penn State. Like, it's what we do as college football fans. It's a tribal sport, and we love it. We don't apologize for it. But as much as SEC bias is real among fans, anti-SEC bias is also a real thing. And can I say this too? I get it. I grew up around it when I was in grade school, man. Like, I understand it. Like, the barking from Georgia fans, that's freaking annoying. If you're a Georgia fan, more power to you. It's what you do. You have no problem saying you're a drunk, obnoxious Georgia fan and barking. But, like, if you're on the other side of that, it kind of rubs you the wrong way. You're tired of hearing about all the national titles that SEC teams won. I get it. The SEC beast that it is, if you're not within it, it can rub you the wrong way and be a little bit obnoxious. I understand that. But if we want to be real about this thing, the anti-SEC bias agenda exists as well. Go pull up old tweets from some of these folks shouting for Bama to get dropped from the college football playoff because they lost to Georgia. Just go check it out. I will guess there is a larger hit rate of folks begging for Bama to be out of the college football playoff. I bet there's an overlap there with those same folks shouting before the ACC title game is played a year ago that SMU, no matter what the score is against Clemson, they have to be in. it sounds something like, well, the games have to matter. The regular season has to matter. SMU, they should be in. Now, listen, I don't have a dog in the fight here. Again, I grew up around that. I also grew up around the Pac-12 country. I lived in a Big Ten country. My 23andMe college football test comes back with a bunch of different conferences attached to it, all right? So I don't have a dog in the fight here. But I do just want to make sure we say this out loud. There is a portion of the college football public that has an anti-SEC bias agenda. And I understand it. I get it. But let's also understand that just because you don't like the SEC doesn't make Bama getting into the college football playoff less valid. So I get it. I hear it. It is what it is. But quite frankly, Alabama being in the college football playoff as an SEC runner-up, they were never going to get left out. It was never going to happen. We're getting fired up for America's game. It's Army. It's Navy. It's one of, in my opinion, the best rivalries, and not just all of college football, all of sports. I got a chance to go to this game in 2017. Lincoln Financial Field, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, freaking blizzard conditions. And the game was everything that I thought it would be, and then some. Cinematic finish. Let me tell you, the traditions within this game are absolutely second to none. First of all, the uniform reveal. Army's uniforms for that game, honoring the 10th Mountain Division, winter warfare in World War II. There was some all-white icy joints. Those were absolutely phenomenal. Love watching those out there. And then you also have the march on, where the Army cadets march onto the field before the game, creates electricity in the air. It's absolutely cinematic. You have the flyover, where you have the Army aviators go across the field, or over the field rather. You have the Army Golden Knights parachute team landing on the 50-yard line. You got the prisoner exchange, which is absolutely the most insane tradition in this game. In my opinion, you got students who spend a semester at the rival academy, switching sides, being freed in this game. This game has everything. It's pageantry, it's tradition, it's college football at its most pure form. Saturday, December 13th, Army, Navy, America's game. Baltimore, Maryland will lock in and enjoy it. America's game will be once again sensational. Let's get to y'all's voicemails here. 629-888-3931. We put out the call to action on the social platforms. That's why it's very crucial for y'all to be following Instagram, Twitter, at JD PicKell. We throw up the bat signal. We throw up a prompt. We say, hey, keep it right around 30 seconds so we can get you on the show. And we got the best audience in the world of college football digital media. I truly believe that. We got people that are dialed into the sport, dialed into how they consume the sport, dialed into how they respond to our voicemail prompts. One of you called from the shower with a take on Notre Dame and their standing in the college football playoff final rankings. Go ahead and take a listen with my man getting his clean on and also getting his take on relative to Notre Dame.
It's Jeremy. JD, I'm in the shower right now, if you can't hear it. I'm an Oklahoma Sooners football fan, and I feel bad for Notre Dame. Notre Dame got fleeced out of the playoffs. Miami is a fraudulent team. By round one, we'll see how fraudulent Miami is, and Texas A&M win by 30. Mark my words. Love you, JD. I'm in the shower.
One, good for you, taking care of your hygiene. We appreciate that. Two, we also love you. Thank you for being tuned in. Thank you for calling and keeping your voicemail intelligent and concise. So let's get to what he said, though. He said, hey, Miami's fraudulent. Notre Dame got fleeced. We're going to see that when they play them in Kyle Field. When they play A&M, that is, in Kyle Field. I want to get ahead of this narrative. Even if Miami loses by 50, the committee did the right thing. Why? Because Miami and Notre Dame played a football game in week one of the regular season, and Miami beat Notre Dame. Did Notre Dame have a great season? Of course. Should Notre Dame be in the college football playoff? If you're using your brain when you put this whole playoff together and talk about the 12 best teams instead of, 7 at large, 5 highest-ranked conference champions and all that nonsense. If it was best teams in college football, you took those top 12 teams, Notre Dame would and should be in. However, I don't care what the final score is for A&M Miami. There will be Twitter warriors out there, I promise you. There will be people out there, if Miami does, in fact, lose by a sizable margin to A&M and Kyle Field, and they say, well, Miami shouldn't have gotten in, right? This is what we get for not believing in who teams are at the moment and not trusting momentum, and everything else will be cited in retrospect if Miami loses to A&M for people carrying the Notre Dame flag, and I don't blame them for it, but everything will be cited besides playing the actual game. In addition to that, we talk about the 4 common opponents, beat those common opponents, 3 of them by a wider margin than Notre Dame. Like, at the end of the day, it is what it is. I can't help you. So I know that there's going to be this retroactive grading of Miami as a playoff team versus Notre Dame. Like, the game happened. If the game hadn't happened and we wanted to play the hypothetical game, I'd be here for it. We could talk about it. We could compare numbers and resumes and all those things. But when the game happened, football games play, those white lines, man, the 53.3 yards in width, the 100 yards in length, it doesn't lie to you. We had a game. We got to factor that in. That counts. So in relation to the other stuff with Notre Dame, I also want to make sure we talk about this. Notre Dame is in a spot now where I think a lot of people are questioning their lack of allegiance to a conference. And I hear that. I understand that. I think there's some validity to that. Here's where I'm at, though, if I'm Notre Dame. Miami didn't play for a conference title either. Notre Dame, in some ways, played like a pseudo-ACC schedule. Their strength of schedule was about the same as Miami's. So, like, Miami didn't play for a conference title and find their way in. It came down to that game between the two of them. So, I think this idea that Notre Dame needs to join a conference, while I get where it comes from, and I think it's fair, the college football playoff, the 12-team model, has been around for 10 minutes, going to change tomorrow. Notre Dame's been independent for darn near a century. Like, if I'm Notre Dame, while this sucks, and maybe if you're in a conference, things break differently for you, I'm going to be a little bit slow to make action when this whole college football playoff carousel is continue to churn and move around and shake and look different every other year. Like, let's just kind of take this thing slowly. We'll be a sloth, not a golden retriever, and react so quickly. We'll see where this whole thing goes. So if it continues to hurt Notre Dame in the future and they're out of the college football playoff because they're not in a conference, then we have a different discussion. Then we revisit this and we talk about it a little bit differently. Now, the other news that broke yesterday, or Sunday, I suppose, rather, in relation to Notre Dame, is Notre Dame gets invited to, not the granddaddy of them all, but the fun cousin of them all, the Pop-Tarts Bowl. And they say, you know what, we appreciate that. BYU, be fun to play, y'all, but we're going to, we got left out of the college football playoff. We're good on all that. We're good on the bowl game stuff. And as a college football player, or formerly college football player at the FCF level, shout out, it feels soft. I think competitors want to compete. I think you have a chance to have 15 practices, and you should use those 15 practices for whoever wants to be around, get more reps, go finish the season the right way, go beat BYU, Notre Dame, and prove a point why you should have been in the college football playoff. I hear all that. While that's how I feel about it, and I would choose that if I was Notre Dame, I do think it's funny how the narrative has changed around bowl games. People that are supposed to champion the sport, people that are shouting about how, hey, bowl games are meaningless. Hey, it's all about the college football playoff. People that are supposed to be pro-college football are shouting about bowl games being meaningless, are now mad at Notre Dame for not playing in the quote-unquote meaningless bowl game. So we never said that on this show. We've always been pro-bowl game. We've always been, we like the playoff, but we love the fabric of college football, which is the regular season. Just think it's funny how that has sort of shifted. And with that, I say, as a college football public, this has been perpetuated. So don't be surprised now. You've been shouting about meaningless bowl games, and now Notre Dame is agreeing with you with it being meaningless and not playing in it. Just saying. Now, if you want to be at this college football playoff game with Miami playing Texas A&M, or if you want to get tickets for next season, or if you want to be at the Pop-Tarts Bowl, see BYU play Georgia Tech, Game Time, the best way to do that now. I'm telling you, we're going to save you some money here in a minute, but Game Time is the most safe, fast, effective, affordable way to purchase tickets. I've told you many times, you can see the view from your seat before you buy the ticket. You can track ticket prices in real time to make sure, hey, those ticket prices are dropping a little bit. I might wait a few more minutes before I buy that ticket to Notre Dame season opener next year or whatever it might be. So to save some money on this, get locked in, take the guesswork out of buying tickets, download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code HARDCOUNT for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code HARDCUNT for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. All right, so Miami's going to play A&M. And in terms of this game itself, it's all about if Miami shows up at the quarterback position, which we'll talk about Miami a little bit later in the show. It's all about if Carson Beck shows up. Truly, you've seen multiple spots here. You throw 4 picks against Louisville, you get beat. You throw 2 picks against SMU, you get beat. But really across the board, like, I would be very surprised if we had a blowout on our hands relative to this Miami A&M game. A&M wants to rush the passer. Miami's got a top 5 sack rate allowed in college football. Like, that offensive line, they're the real deal. A&M secondary giving up a couple explosives this year. They've been susceptible to the big play, even regardless of what the numbers say. Miami's got a top 20 yards per pass offense. A&M, they want to run the football. Miami's top 10 when it comes to stopping the run. A&M struggles when Marcel Reed can't set his feet. Miami's got a top 20 sack rate. So I'd be surprised if we had a world where we're living in where Jerry's correct in the sense that A&M beats the brakes off Miami. But even with that being said, the games have to matter. I think Notre Dame should have been in the college football playoff, but not because of the way that they decided on the Miami situation with the committee. The structure of itself is whack, and I'm not here for it. I'm not here for it. You took the 12 best teams. Notre Dame is in there. Cato, we've talked about this a lot on this show. Talked about it a lot in the office, too, with is it Notre Dame? Is it Miami? Head-to-head matters, but where's Miami in the rankings? Are they going to creep up and find a way in as an at-large bid? Where are you at on this whole Notre Dame situation? And just what my man said from the shower, Notre Dame being fleeced and it being proven on the field with Miami A&M.
Yeah, there's a lot here, JD. I've been waiting to get my hands on this one. Just starting with the segment even before this, the people who thought Alabama shouldn't be in the playoff. That between Alabama, Miami, and Notre Dame going into the weekend, after the weekend, to me it was pretty clear that there are only so many outcomes that could happen. And the outcome where the SEC regular season champ and runner-up in the SEC title game, so kind of by definition, the second best team in the SEC was not going to make the 12-team playoff. That wasn't going to happen. Greg Sankey wasn't going to let that happen. If that would have happened, we'd be getting news today about the SEC and the Big Ten doing their own thing, leaving this playoff system. Like, that would have been the worst case kind of repercussions. Second worst case repercussions would be if there were two teams that played head-to-head and one of them was in the playoff and one of them was out of the playoff, that lost that game. Those are the two things that, to me, would cause the most outrage by far. Whatever the outrage we think is right now, it would have paled in comparison to those two outcomes. So to me, this was like clear as day. Once BYU lost, I hate that they were the sacrificial lamb of a terrible playoff system. That should include all of these teams. Like, we all agree on that.
Yeah.
So the Irish did get kind of fleeced in that way, but it's a part of the system, and I think this was pretty easy to telegraph. Notre Dame taking their ball, though, and not playing in a bowl game, to me, just rubs me the wrong way. They said it was the players' decision. To me, if you are a senior, if this is your last time putting a Notre Dame uniform on, let those players decide that. I don't know exactly how they went about that, but to me, those are the only players whose opinions matter as far as playing in one last game. And it's the Pop-Tart Bowl. The game is awesome. The pageantry of that game, the afterwards, the pregame stuff, great bowl game. If you were going to turn down any bowl game, doesn't help that it's the Pop-Tart Bowl, a game that we love, the sprinkles on the sideline. So it's tough to see that too, but at the end of the day, man, like, it's the system. Like, we should be mad at the ACC for letting Duke, through all those tiebreakers, break into their conference title game and kind of set the college football playoff committee up for failure. We should be mad at the committee. We should be mad at ourselves for hearing this verbiage of how the playoff works and how to get into it, for not being like, wait a second, with this verbiage, technically this could happen. Like, everything that could possibly happen that's like worst case scenario or the most unexpected scenario, it's going to happen with the college football playoff. I remember coming on this show to talk G5 before I was the producer.
Yeah.
We were going to call that segment the 12 seed. Then we quickly learned, wait, the G5 doesn't have to be the 12 seed. They can be the 4 seed with a bye, apparently. They can be one of two teams to get in here because the ACC imploded and is not good this year. It's so clear right now that the system is messed up that I think all of the negative attention, whether it's the lower third saying that the Fighting Irish got fleeced, people thinking Alabama shouldn't be in there, people thinking Miami shouldn't be in there. Like, we just need to take all of this energy and put it towards doing what we can to fix this for next year. We're in the infancy phases of a 12-team playoff. We're clearly taking our lumps right now with how the G5 is being in here and the seeding and stuff. Like, it's clearly messed up. We need to be mad at that. Like, that's why this is happening. It's not because Notre Dame's any lesser of a team, but through all of this, I think the biggest takeaway is to just like, you're too good for a conference and too good for a bowl game. Like you can't, like, I don't like this look for Notre Dame. And I've said this before. We listened back to Marcus Freeman's interview with Joel Klatt this summer, asking him about them joining a conference. They said they want to stay in a conference as long as they can, but if it puts them at a disadvantage of making the playoff, they will have to consider it. For me, any given year where Notre Dame compared to a SEC or a Big Ten team, if they have the same record, those teams deserve to be in ahead of Notre Dame. Like, the rigor of a schedule, I don't care if you think Oklahoma looks worse than Notre Dame on the eye test. Like, look at Oklahoma's schedule. Like, when you make your own schedule and you're picking and choosing random ACC opponents, which we'll see how that goes, just given the news between ACC and Notre Dame, we said before the season, Notre Dame has a 2-game season, and they lost both of those games. And I get that they look better throughout the season, but they lost their 2 opportunities to really prove to us they were a playoff team, and they look like a playoff team the rest of the way. But that's always what it was going to be. The same way before the season, we looked at Oklahoma's schedule, we looked at Florida's schedule, and we said, okay, like if they go 9-3, they might have a case. Well, Oklahoma went 10-2. So at the end of the day, I think all of that to say the playoff system, Notre Dame being non-con, and them not making a bowl game, it's just a recipe for what's wrong right now in the playoff and college football. And I think we need to take our attention towards fixing that and making sure this is a better product and enforcing and pushing the powers that be to make this playoff better so we don't have to have these conversations.
I don't like Notre Dame turning on the bowl bid. I think that, again, kind of lame. Would have liked to see them play in a bowl game, much less it being the Pop-Tart Bowl and the opportunity to develop your players. But I think it's very funny how a lot of the sports writer crowd is flipping the narrative too and like, Notre Dame, why aren't you playing in a bowl game? That's so soft of you. You're just upset to make the college football playoff. And it's like those same people were the ones shouting about how bowl season's dead, bowl games are meaningless. Why are we having bowl games? We should have less bowl games. And it's like, again, Cato, we played the sport, so we feel a certain way about this. But I think it's very funny that there is a portion of the college football public that has been down on bowl games, but is now down on Notre Dame for not playing in the bowl games that they have devalued now over the course of the last, I don't know how many years.
Yeah, listen, like I broke my thumb in the Boca Raton Bowl playing against Bailey Zappi in Western Kentucky, and we were getting smoked, and I wanted to finish the game because it's the last time I played in the uniform. You know what I mean? Like these Notre Dame players, they don't get a conference championship to play in, and they can't play in a bowl game. Like I'm sure years from now, Notre Dame players who are seniors on that team will look back and be like, dang, I wish I would have played in that game. That would have been cool. We forget a lot of the times, like the 1% of college football we talk about that are these elite players going to the NFL making all this NIL money. Like there's 99% of every other, not just football player, but athlete. And like what's wrong with the sport right now is like a direct reflection of that. Like you should want to be able to strap it up and play one last time with your teammates. And I don't get what they get out of not playing in this. Like you get weeks of practice to develop your team. With the Marcus Freeman program, it's definitely surprising.
Eyebrow raising.
Yeah, it's eyebrow raising for sure. I know every level of football is not created the same, but at the end of the day, like it is such a violent game and such a team game that like it's one thing if you were a top player in a dangerous game who doesn't want to play in your bowl game, wants to get ready for the NFL draft. We always looked at that kind of sideways when Christian McCaffrey kind of set the tone for that and Leonard Fournette and those guys. That's a little bit more understandable now. An entire team sitting out of a bowl game just because they didn't make the college football playoff, that is a system that is just oil and water when it comes to you not being in a conference, playing your games in the beginning of the season and losing them and then not really having any other case to make. Like you can't just like, oh, okay, now we're over all of this now. We're over the postseason at large because we didn't make it to the playoff. Like, I don't love it optically. I don't love it for the seniors, and don't love it for college football. So it'll be interesting to see which teams now in the future, because now it's a whole nother thing. Coaches are getting fired early. We're not playing in bowl games. Like the whole system. I know we went off on a huge tangent here as far as the Notre Dame getting fleeced.
It's good. It's good.
But yeah, man, interesting times for sure. And at the end of the day, I think we can all agree both of these teams should have been in the playoff, but weren't because of the system.
System, man. Got to fix it. It'll change next year. We got to fix it. We got to save bowl season too, dude. Bowl season's too special to let it just drift into the abyss. But again, beat Miami, and then this isn't even a conversation. But
yep,
so it goes. Hey, Cato, speaking of Miami, we got a call about what Miami could potentially do here in the college football playoff. For those of y'all that watched the show, we had a show on Thanksgiving. Aaron Murray said he thinks Miami could be this year's Ohio State, where if you get them in the dance, Miami, you're in the dance now, music's playing, they could go on a run and compete for the whole freaking thing. This caller feels the exact same way. Take a listen.
I think, ironically, Miami will be last year's Notre Dame, that they will make a run all the way to the championship game, and I think they will justify themselves being in the playoff, led by Malachi, Coney, and Reuben Bain Jr.
I think he's right. I don't think it's a crazy take when you talk about where Notre Dame was last year after the NIU loss. They were in playoff mode from the jump. Kind of the same thing with Miami after the SMU loss. Now, obviously, different points in your season, but Miami's been in college football playoff mode since that game in early November. They have been psychologically having to be in, okay, if we lose another game, we're out of this thing. 10-2 wasn't good enough last year. Is it good enough this year? Gosh, I hope so, but we know 9-3 is not going to be it. They were also hoping and praying things would break their way in the ACC to be in the conference title game. That didn't happen. But I think with what Miami is, when you zoom out, it's all about them realizing their potential. Because there's not a lot to dislike about Miami's roster. Line of scrimmage, we're good. Carson Beck, when he's on, phenomenal. The skill players, you mentioned Malachi Toney, elite. Keelan Murray and CJ. Like, they've got a lot of pieces here on this roster. It's not like you have any massive roster holes for Miami. It's all about, are you willing to show up consistently and be that team that was out there that beat Notre Dame, or are you the team that showed up on a Friday night and lost to Louisville and you throw 4 picks and just look embarrassing? Miami's kind of like that one friend that you have that's brilliant, great social skills, intelligent, bright future on paper, but they just, for whatever reason, disorganized, not showing up to class, missing key interviews, leaving people on red with text, like just not on their stuff, man. Miami this year, you're in this position not because you're not better than SMU or Louisville, because you're not on your stuff. Okay, so now you have a new lease on life, Miami. Now you're in a spot where you can go make some noise in the college football playoff and prove it. Now, going back to what I said a second ago, with the losses Miami's had this year, hasn't been perfect. It's a team game, so I don't want to blame one person. But if Carson Beck doesn't throw 4 picks against Louisville, that game probably breaks another way. I think the way that Carson Beck is progressing over the course of the season is being dismissed, I think, by a lot of folks in the college football public space. I'm looking at the practice math for my guy. Now, bear with me. I'm not a math guy. Admittedly, took financial accounting twice. When you look at what Carson Beck missed in spring practice and fall camp, I think he's now at a point where he's made up for that time that he missed. Roll with me here. You have 15 practices in spring football. Carson Beck missed all of those. So if you're doing the math at home, we are now at a 15 practice deficit. It was more or less out there that Carson Beck was on a rep count, a pitch count, during fall camp. So fall camp, you have give or take 25 practices. We're going to go ahead and say pitch count implies you're doing, let's call it like conservatively, 75% of the reps. So let's just go ahead and say that Carson Beck got 75% worth of what fall practice would bring to you. If you had to put a practice count on it, let's go ahead and say he got 18 practices. Again, right around 75% of those 25 practices. So we all in here, 27 practices are missing from Carson Beck's development in a brand new system at Miami. Okay, so we start the season, we're rolling, good times are abounding, but you have those losses to Louisville and SMU. During a college football season, you're essentially getting 3 good practices a week. You have your walkthrough, you have a lot of film, but like in terms of like on-field real reps, you're getting about 3 practices a week. So you do the math now. Carson Beck, if he's down 27 practices, he passed that 27 practice threshold right around the SMU game. Before the SMU game, Carson Beck, 14 touchdowns, 9 picks. Since passing more or less that practice threshold, now it's not against great competition, roll with me though, 11 touchdowns, 1 pick. My point in all this, even if you don't like the numbers, Carson Beck seems to be playing better football. I don't think it's a coincidence that the longer he's getting in this system and the more reps he's getting with his guys, both in practice and in a game-like scenario, he's improving. And if Carson Beck is on, Miami is a real problem for you. Because across the board, man, there's not a lot that you don't like when it comes to matchups for Miami. I mentioned the sack rate for them. They're top 5 when it comes to protecting the quarterback. They are a top 20 run defense. They are top 20 when it comes to sack rate. They are good on the back end by the numbers. Like, there's a lot with Miami where you say, okay, if Carson Beck's on, we can go now. We can go. Because I think if you are referring to different spots in the college football playoff where teams have just looked like they don't belong, what shows up most quickly? Line of scrimmage, quarterback play, and then the cherry on top is lack of skill players. Miami's got all of those. Miami checks the box in every single category. Not saying they're going to run the table, win a national championship, but I think when you look at what they have in front of them here, like A&M, as good as they are, Miami can match up in the front end with them. I think when it comes down to like a quarterback duel, Marshall Reed's had a better season, but like Carson Beck, when he's on, he can hold serve there. So similar to last year's Notre Dame, Miami's in a spot where the psychology of it all should be in a good spot because you've been in playoff mode for a while. You made the playoff. You probably feel like you have the most to prove in this playoff, and then your quarterback's playing his best ball, and that rep threshold, I think now the practice threshold, has been crossed, and it's not a coincidence you're seeing Carson Beck playing the way he's playing since SMU. So could Miami make a college football playoff run? To answer our caller's question here, answer their take? Absolutely. Absolutely. That's where we're at right now on this whole thing. Kato, do you have a take on where Miami is right now in relation to just all this discussion around should the Canes have been in and all that? We've talked about that ad nauseum, but now they're in the dance. Now they got a spot to really make a run here. And now we're not talking about Miami and Notre Dame. We're talking about Miami and Texas A&M. Overall thoughts on the Canes, just overall thoughts on where they are heading into the first round of the playoff.
Yeah, JD, it's interesting. When we talked to Aaron Murray around Thanksgiving, he was comparing Miami to what Ohio State was last year. So, we've got the Notre Dame comp now. We have the Ohio State comp now. So it's big shoes to fill for sure. I will say, one, they took care of business in November, which makes you feel better. This was this team's kryptonite the last couple years under Mario Cristobal, is when the lights, not necessarily were even the brightest, they weren't even bright light situations, but when the football mattered the most, they weren't winning those games when it mattered most. So they stubbed their toe in the regular season, yes. The losses weren't great. I think SMU and Louisville are still two good teams. They're not great teams, but they're good programs out there with hard offenses to stop and head coaches that really set up their players for success. But since then, they've looked flawless. They've been rolling. And I think the biggest thing is their path. Like you talked about kind of the ceiling and the floor of a Carson Beck. I think we can both agree Marcel Reed kind of has a little bit of a ceiling and floor too as far as what we've seen in his best moments and his worst moments this season. So I think if they can make it past an A&M team that kind of has some of the same DNA as them as far as the quarterback position, plays that can be really good and really bad and be a turnover, I think it just makes the matchup for me my favorite of the first round and one I'm really excited to see. Biggest X factor for me though, JD, and I think it's to the point now where I think he's a little bit under talked about. Malachi Toney, yeah. I don't know how many receivers I can name that are better than Malachi Toney. I mean, we might have to get Charles Power in here. Like, the true freshman just coming to college football ready to go is insane. And that was a very big part of Ohio State's success in the postseason last year. So do we see a Malachi Toney adjacent Jeremiah Smith playoff performance that can lead Miami? I think he gives them a ton of upside. 84 catches, JD. That's number 6 in FBS.
Jeez.
Across all of college football for a true freshman. Do guys have more yardage? Yes. Do guys have more touchdowns? Yes. When the game is on the line, when it's a third down, when they need to make something happen, they throw the ball to a true freshman that gets it done and has gotten better throughout the season. So if you're telling me he can have a Jeremiah Smith kind of postseason that we saw last year, then all of a sudden this Miami conversation, I think it's a lot more interesting. And then it's not about what Carson Beck needs to do, what this defense can do. Do you have one guy that solves your problems and can have a big play away from flipping games, whether it's on the road, at a neutral site? To me, baby Jesus, man, is underrated at this point. 84 catches is a go-to guy. Like, that is being a go-to guy. He throws the ball too. Like, he's been unbelievable, and I think he's the real X factor that if they do go on a run, it's because Malachi Toney probably had a Jeremiah Smith level postseason like Ohio State did last year. Bless you. I know it's overwhelming information I'm giving.
Golly. Golly. Also, just to kind of factor in like the parallels, South Florida guy, much like Jeremiah Smith. Ohio State was, the way I understand it, pretty heavy in his recruitment with the one Brian Hartline. So there's a lot of overlap there, Cato. I like that comparison. Freshman receiver took over the playoff last year. Malachi Toney taking over here in the month of November, absolutely, and really this entire season for Miami. I like that a lot, Cato.
Yeah, he's awesome, man. He's one of the – we might have to do a postseason players we're most looking forward to watching or something like that. So some kind of ranking for the players we get to watch this postseason. But Malachi Toney is always up there for me, man. There's a couple sleepy games. Oh, Miami's playing Stanford, whatever it is. I cut it on, and I usually get – even if you just cut on a quarter or two, you're going to see Malachi Toney do something special. So I think a runaway Sean Alexander, freshman of the year, All-American, whatever you want to call it. He's this year's freshman, man. Every year we seem to have one or two pop, and I think he takes the crown this year.
He's the guy, man. And also to double down on that thought when it comes to Malachi Toney and his impact on the season for the Canes, like a guy, too, who's only a freshman. Like, I mean, we talked about Jeremiah Smith and what he was for them last year, but Malachi Toney, you'd like to think, too, now he's past that freshman threshold, maybe we see him pop in a way. I mean, Jeremiah Smith had a great, regular season, but we really saw him turn it on in the postseason. Maybe it's the same deal when we talk about them in this postseason. Yeah,
and the last thing I'll say, like, the funny part about Jeremiah Smith last year was when he was really starting to ramp it up in the playoff. Because he's a freshman, it's just normal to him. Yeah. Like, what last year was for Ohio State is just the standard in his head. He's like, oh, yeah, like, I'm going to go out there, be the best receiver on the field, score a bunch of touchdowns, and we're going to win the Natty. Like Malachi Tony doesn't probably like yet know that this is like strange, that he's this effective, getting the ball this much and having this much of an impact. So there's almost a little bit of like freshman delusion where it's like, yeah, I did this in high school, so of course I'm going to do it in college. And like, he's just running on that right now. Like this is just normal to him. Like he did this in high school, took over a quarterback, led them to the state title. Like this is just what he does. So like, he's probably the least surprised of everyone. And this is just business as usual. And I think from a mindset standpoint too, that could help him in the Hurricanes as well. Just like I did for Ohio State. Jeremiah Smith's like, yeah, like I'm Jeremiah Smith. Like I did this in high school. I'm clearly doing it as soon as I show up to college. Like, see you on the video game cover next year.
Throw me the ball. Good things happen.
It's that simple.
You don't know what you don't know. And sometimes not knowing that you're not supposed to do this as a true freshman
exactly
pays dividends. I was going to say this too. When we come to our playoff unit draft, Miami receiving core,
very slept on.
High value pick.
Very, very slept on. I like that. I like that it's being set into the universe already. I can't wait for that draft.
It's there. It's already there. I love it, man. I absolutely love it. Well, we had speaking of the playoff unit draft, curious to see where A&M's running back room goes. In addition to receiver room, a lot of value there with A&M. We had one of you call make a great point about Texas A&M. When you zoom out and look at the 12-team field and how the bracket aligns, if you're drafting hardest paths to a national title, A&M might be 1-1.
A&M probably has the hardest path to the national championship, because they have to go through, well, Miami maybe not as difficult, but still very difficult. But then you have Ohio State and then Georgia, who, in my opinion, those two are some of the scariest teams that A&M probably faces. But if they get through that, what a crazy year it could be. What a crazy scenario it could be for the Aggies.
No, I think you're absolutely on the money. Again, 629-888-3931. Call us with your playoff takes. Keep it under 30 seconds like our man did there. Make sure you're subscribed as well to the channel. We're talking college football year-round, but we're obviously locked in for the college football playoff. This is why on this side of things, we have prefaced a lot of our preseason predictions relative to the variance you get when it comes to the college football playoff field. All right, it used to be, hey, just win your conference, win 2 games, you're a national champion. Now it's like, hey, maybe just like win 10 games if you're in one of those big 2, unless your name's Vanderbilt, and you're in the college football playoff, and we'll kind of see what your path is. Maybe you get a Penn State path where you play SMU and Boise State, or maybe you get a Texas A&M path where you got to play Miami and you got to play Ohio State if chalk holds. You got to play Georgia. Like there's a lot there where it's very tough to predict your playoff path, so therefore it's tough to predict who's going to win the national championship. But just to add validity to what our man's saying over there, playing Miami in the first round, I think Miami will be favored over every other team in the first round of the college football playoff, not named Oregon. All right, so not an easy matchup by any stretch of the imagination. Texas A&M, BetMGM, that line opened at 3.5. So essentially, BetMGM saying at a neutral site, this game's a pick'em. So they're putting respect on Miami's name. Then you play Ohio State. You're not just playing random Ohio State. You're playing sense of urgency Ohio State, that I would say is the most talented team in college football. All right. Then on top of that, again, if chalk holds, you play Georgia, who is arguably the hottest team in college football, not named Indiana. So like there's so much there. And then you go play for a national championship, and if chalk holds, to be the number 1 overall seed, Indiana Hoosiers. So what you're saying is absolutely right. A&M, you have got an uphill climb to get to Miami to play for a national championship. But there's a couple of things that are going your way in this. One is I think you have laser focus after the Texas loss. Now, I keep kind of speaking out of both sides of my mouth, which I'm not intending to. It sounds like I'm speaking out of both sides of my mouth, but I just want to distill this down here. It is never a good thing to lose, but I like A&M with a little bit of a fire lit under them with the Texas loss, hoping to create some urgency there. Also, you get a home college football playoff game in a spot now where Mike Elko has not lost this season, in a spot now where, as the head coach at A&M, he's only lost twice over the course of his career, so you got that going for you. You also, just to keep it a buck here, A&M, you can play with all these teams. They're big logos. I'm not saying you'll be favored in all those games. I think Ohio State's probably favored over you. I think Georgia's probably favored over you. But you can play with all of them. If it's about the front 7 on defense and your offensive line and quarterback play, you check all those boxes. Like A&M, we keep saying this, at their best, at their flow state, when Marcel Reed is setting his feet, when you got the run game rolling, you got guys making people miss in open space. Like, they are, I think, the best team in college football, not named Ohio State or Indiana. I put them in that same tier. So, on top of all those things, going back to Marcel Reed, the conversation with him is interesting when you get into, like, matchup games, because I think you have what I would call malleable quarterback play. Whatever the situation calls for, whoever you're playing, Marcel Reed and his ability to run the football and create plays out of broken plays, I think that's really, really important. Because I said, I think you probably have an offense that can score with anybody. Well, in this college football playoff tournament, like, you're probably going to have to score with anybody. I don't think you're holding Ohio State to 13 points. I don't think you're holding Georgia in check. I think Miami's probably going to score a little bit too. So you have Marcel Reed in a spot where he can answer scores, but at the exact same time, if you take away the receivers, he can shake and bake and be a run game for you. If you try to take away the run game, he can make something happen in the broken play category. He can also do some stuff in the design quarterback run category. Like, there's a lot of different variables there with Marcel Reed with how he can win you a football game. I don't think that is something to be looked over. Carson Beck's not making you miss in the open field. God bless Carson Beck, but it's just the fact of the matter. Julian Saying got some wiggle to him, but like he's not a guy that's going to manufacture a run game for you. So that being in A&M's pros list here going forward, I think that's really important. Now, I want to be very careful how I say this because I do not have any intel on the injury front for A&M. I don't know where things stand with Le'Veon Moss, but I am tracking that Le'Veon Moss situation like a freaking hawk because when he's in the lineup, you add more depth at running back, you add more explosivity to the offense, you have a greater advantage for you whenever Marcel Reed does decide to pull it and run because they're all focused on Le'Veon Moss. Le'Veon Moss being available for this playoff run, to me, just totally rejuvenates the potential of what A&M can be in this tournament. So we'll see what happens. Again, I don't know what's the latest there. Hope Le'Veon Moss can be back for this playoff run because he's a freaking weapon and changes the whole game for them. Now, Texas A&M has been a big momentum team, too, throughout this year. So the reason why I say that, if you do beat Miami, we've seen A&M take one win and turn it into two, turn it into three, go on a run all the way to the end of the regular season. You lose the season finale is what it is. But I say that because I don't know that A&M against Notre Dame, we were all leaving that game saying, well, they're definitely going to go and win the rest of their games till Texas, right? Like, you look good, but the defense gave you some concerns. Then you play Auburn the next week, and defense didn't look, not the next week, but after a bye, it wasn't like the best showing of all time from the offense for A&M. But they just kept winning, and I think a big part of that was the belief they got from the Notre Dame game, the win from the Auburn game. Like, I think those propelled A&M. So I say all that to say, if you beat Miami, I think you look at yourself a little bit different going into Ohio State. If you beat Ohio State, you definitely look at yourself differently going into Georgia. So there is some matchup advantages here for A&M in addition to this idea of them having momentum. But if you beat Miami, like, Ohio State's got run-stopping issues. Like, Ohio State just gave up multiple sacks to Indiana. Cassius Howe can get off the edge against Ohio State. Like, they bleed like you bleed. Same deal with Georgia. Like, who knows what A&M looks like at that point whenever they play Georgia, but we've seen Georgia at different points in time. Not lately, but over the course of the season, they have, call a spade here, they've had issues on the back end. I think they've fixed those, but it's a different set of receivers that A&M's working with here. The last thing here, I think Mike Elko and his personality, I think he's just numb to the moment. Like, if you were to pick a coach to get the hardest path in the college football playoff in the first round, you're probably drafting between, like, Lanning and maybe you throw Marcus Freeman into there if they had made the playoff. I think Mike Elko is exactly what the doctor ordered when it comes to A&M having the toughest playoff path. He truly does not care, and if he doesn't care, his team is going to take on that personality, and they won't care. So, yeah, it's some big logos in Ohio State, potentially Georgia. Miami's going to be a tough test. But I think A&M and their personality will tee themselves up really well. Now, transparently, I have no idea who I'm picking in the Miami A&M game. If you want to get our pick in that game, again, make sure you're subscribed. We'll have that for you at some point this week when we get our bearings. All I'm saying is the path is brutal, but there's a couple of things to cling to there if you're an Aggie fan, and we'll see where the chips fall. But far be it from me to tell you Mike Elko won't have the boys ready to play. All right, we got another one of y'all wanted to, speaking of Ohio State, talk about Ohio State and maybe some questions around them coming out of that Indiana game. It wasn't great, all right? Never great to lose the Big Ten championship game, but we're questioning now, it sounds like, the chops of Ohio State in this college football playoff. Take a listen.
Hey, JD, it's Jace from Henderson, Tennessee. I just want to talk about Ohio State for a second. They haven't played the best schedule all year. They did beat Texas week 1, not the best Texas. Faced a mediocre Michigan this year. They finally faced a good Indiana team. I mean, Ohio State still gets the first round bye, but do we really see Ohio State even really making a deep run in this with the type of season they've had? Or which they've had a good season, but do we actually see them beating real strength opponents with higher SOSs and SORs and stuff like that?
Thank you for calling. I get where this comes from. I do. I get how it feels. It feels like you played Texas week 1, but Texas, it was Arch Manning's first start. Julian Saint's first start too, but like it didn't really feel like Texas had found their footing. How much stock do you put into that? You beat Michigan, but how good is Michigan really? And Bryce Underwood, he's a true freshman. We don't know 110% how we feel about that relative to teams you're going to have to beat in the college football playoff. And then you play Indiana. And Indiana, evidently the number 1 team in college football, you lose to them, your first quote-unquote real test. Again, I get where this comes from. But I would push back on this. If Indiana is for real and the number 1 team in college football and the team to beat and all those things, and Ohio State lost by 3 points, are we sure we want to sell the Buckeye stock right now? And again, I understand the filters on Ohio State aren't tremendous, but Ohio State was number 1 in college football heading into that game for a reason, because they had looked the number 1 team, because they hadn't had a bunch of these massive letdown spots. I'll push back to on the common opponent stuff. Like Indiana, they played with their food for a while against Penn State. Took an Omar Cooper, Fernando Mendoza Heisman moment to be able to beat them. Ohio State beat the brakes off Penn State. Now, again, Indiana still beat Ohio State, so I'm not lobbying for Ohio State to be the top seed in the college football playoff. But I do just think that when you look at that game in and of itself, if Indiana beat Ohio State 31-7, different story. Then I'd hear all the conversations around, well, how real are the Buckeyes relative to winning a national championship 2 years in a row? Well, how do you view their season, in retrospect? Do we think the Buckeyes are fraudulent? I mean, I'm looking at the numbers here, man. Like Julian saying didn't have a better day, per se, than Fernando Mendoza. Had better numbers. I don't know if we can say that out loud and not get clown for it, but those are what the stats are. I didn't feel like we found Ohio State's massive weakness. I think we saw Indiana's pass rush get home a few times, so maybe there was like a bit of a crack in the armor there. But I look at Ohio State, I don't feel like there was anything massively exposed. And like previous years for Ohio State, like even go back to last year. Last year when Ohio State lost to Michigan, there was a sense across the college football public of 2 things. One, is Ryan Day the right guy for Ohio State? We didn't buy that narrative necessarily. We thought it might get stale. Different conversation for a different time. The second thing was, Michigan kind of exposed Ohio State. Hey, Ohio State's still not tough enough. And they play a team in the first round against Tennessee, and like Tennessee's a good line of scrimmage football team now. Again, it's all hindsight's 2020. That's what was being said. The feeling was a year ago, Ohio State got exposed. Now you can go after them. Ohio State's going to lose in the college football playoff. And then Ohio State caught fire, did what they did, became a buzzsaw, and I truly believe nobody was beating Ohio State, regardless of what draw they got in the first round or their bye. Like, it wasn't going to happen. However you drew that playoff up, Ohio State, was just different last year. So I think when you look at what made Ohio State different last year, it was kind of the unquantifiables, right? It wasn't like they got just better talent overnight. They were already a stacked roster last year. They're still a stacked roster this year. So college football playoff runs, to me, are about both the unquantifiables and the quantifiables. And the quantifiables, I think, are still pretty freaking good. Can win you any given game. Like, again, you lost by 3 points to Indiana, and it came down to a chip shot missed field goal and a failed quarterback sneak on 4th down. I think you can sleep okay at night, feeling like Ohio State is still one of the best teams in college football. I would say safely a top 5 quarterback in the sport, best weapons in college football, a defense that's still elite, and a head coach who is the only head coach to go to the top of the 12-team playoff mountain. Roadmap matters, and Ryan Day's got one. So the quantifiables, chef's kiss, not worried about it. The unquantifiables now is where I really want to hone in. It's never good. I keep saying this. Never good to lose. No way to sugarcoat it. However, Ohio State also lost their last game before the college football playoff last year, as poetry would have it, 13-10. Food for thought. Bunch of young bucks now who had just been rolling. Again, 8 new starters. Julian Saint's a new starting quarterback in college football. A bunch of young bucks now, similar to our previous conversation on this full show about Malachi Toney and maybe not knowing what you don't know and that being a good thing. Ohio State now has their first measuring stick of this college football season that isn't happening inside of Columbus. Because before, it's like we're playing the best competition we're going to play here every single week during practice. We can roll the ball out there and go beat the brakes off Purdue and UCLA and beat Washington. We're the number one team in college football. There's no better measuring stick for us than us. That changed on Saturday. You got to see someone beat you. And while, again, it's never a good thing, I think it's an opportunity now for those young bucks and those new players on Ohio State's roster that are in starting roles. I think there's a value to that, of a light bulb moment of, oh, it's going to take a little more. Oh, that's what we have to ascend to situationally, preparation-wise, execution-wise. That's what we have to be if we want to go accomplish all of our goals. So I'll say this. I like hungry teams in the college football playoff. I like teams with a chip on their shoulder. I like teams with something to prove. Ohio State now, if you'd won the Big Ten championship, it would have been nice. Would have had another Big Ten title in Columbus, first one since 2020. But Ohio State now has got some hunger, and the hunger may translate to back-to-back for the Buckeyes. TBD. Again, we will have a full bracket prediction for you on this show in the near future, so again, make sure you're subscribed. But the Buckeyes, I like a hungry dog, man. That's what they got right now out there for the good folks in scarlet and gray. Last voicemail here. Again, appreciate y'all calling in, 629-888-3931. We got Mark in the heart of Athens, Georgia. Want to talk about Georgia and their draw in this college football playoff.
This is Mark from Athens, Georgia, and I cannot have chosen a more favorable first-round matchup for the Dogs. Either going against Tulane or Ole Miss, both have coaches that are either out the door or have one foot out the door. Man, I feel lucky. We've already beat Ole Miss once. With all the drama, I feel like it's going to negatively impact them, and they might get up for the game, but they're not ready. They're not going to have experience playing without Lane Kiffin at this high of a level. I'm looking forward to it. Go Dogs.
Cato, Mark hit us with the smiling through it all. Can't believe this is my life. Like LeBron just in the pool, full smile. Love that for Mark. Love that for the Dogs. And I think he's right. Like if Tulane beats Ole Miss, a team that they lost to early on in the year by 30 or 40 points, whatever it was, more power to the Green Wave. We will evaluate that game when it gets here. But assuming it's Ole Miss, and it's Ole Miss without Lane Kiffin here, Ole Miss still has a lot to honor. Hear me clearly. Trinidad Chambliss, dude. Kejuan Lacey, stud. Pete Golding, now running the show, has done a good enough job, obviously, on the defensive side to get them in the college football playoff. It is what it is. But you're playing Ole Miss without Lane Kiffin. It's like Tony Stark without the Iron Man suit. Still a lot to account for. I mean, he's still rich, he's still funny, he's still witty, he's still intelligent, but like it's not the superpower that it was for Ole Miss. Now, Lane Kiffin didn't make any plays for Ole Miss when he actually came to doing things on the field, but we all understand there were a couple of spots there where the Kiffin masterclass was in full effect. Like the Oklahoma game is what comes to my mind, where they are not breaking the huddle and showing the formation to Oklahoma until it gets under 15 seconds, because that way Brent Venables can't give something to the defense because his communication cuts off. Like all just the chess game that Lane Kiffin plays, in addition to what you have to believe, like the certain level of confidence he exudes. There's got to be a certain swagger for you if you're Trinidad Chambliss out there, knowing Lane Kiffin's on the sideline dialing it up for you. Charlie Weiss, also obviously offensive coordinator, massive factor and massive hand in the offense, but when you lose your Iron Man suit in one, for Tony Stark and for Ole Miss, I think that probably makes you feel pretty good if you're Georgia, and it probably makes Ole Miss look a touch less scary. Now, the pushback on that is, well, JD, no Kiffin gives you galvanized Ole Miss. Ole Miss, you just told us, like a hungry dog in the college football playoff, right? Is there a hungrier dog than the Rebs right now? Without their head coach who left them for another team in the SEC, JD, give me the Ole Miss Rebels to go get it done. I hear you. If that's your take, I hear where it comes from. You were up by 9 in the second half in Athens. Like, it's not ridiculous to say that could happen. But here's my take on the whole galvanized Ole Miss. I agree, and I like it, and it could factor in here. I think a galvanized team really has the most juice in round 1 of the playoff. I think they'll do heinous things to Tulane. But I think there's an expiration date on the us versus the world mentality. I really do. And especially when you got to play Georgia, and Georgia's defense won that game last time with 2 stops. That was all it was. 2 stops won you the football game. That defense is a lot better. And I think Ole Miss's offense is regressing with no Kiffin is my guess here. I like that draw for Georgia, to answer what Mark is speaking to here. Now, in a much more just honest sense, I don't really care who Georgia gets. Whether it's Ole Miss, whether it's Tulane, like it wouldn't matter to me, quite frankly, if it was somebody else that Georgia isn't going to play, because I think Georgia's just on that level right now. Like I said in our reaction to the SEC championship game, the things about Georgia that used to make me nervous, I'm still side-eyeing them because it's responsible to check up on a leak after you fix it. But I think that Georgia in that secondary that made me nervous early on in the year looked pretty good against Bama. I mean, that pass rush that you had questions about throughout the year, if you're Georgia, looked pretty good against Texas, looked pretty good against Alabama, getting home 3 separate times against Ty Simpson, having him in a blender. The things that you used to feel nervous about, you now trust. And the things you trusted before the year, you trust even more. Gunnar Stockton looks awesome. The skill players, the way they're feeding Zachariah Branch the football, the way that Mike Bobo has got his hands on this offense and making it all go and just look elite. Feel good about that. So there's some people, though, that will say, well, JD, but the bye. Georgia had a bye last year and went how it went, right? Notre Dame showed up and took care of business, had Gunnar Stockton in the blender is how the whole thing went. Are we sure that the bye is going to serve Georgia well here? I think last year's Georgia team really needed it because they were breaking in a new quarterback. Carson Beck gets hurt. You're dinged up throughout the entirety of the year playing an SEC schedule. Like, they needed that bye last year. This year's Georgia team, I don't know if the bye is quite as much of a need as much as it is like a luxury. And I think also we talked about Ryan Day with the roadmap. Kirby Smart is the only coach on the planet to get a bye twice in the 12-team playoff. So translation, I think the things that maybe Georgia would have fixed about their preparation last time, Kirby's fixing it, man. I'll tell you that right now. If he doesn't like the certain practice structure they had last year that caused them to lose that game against Notre Dame, if that was at all responsible, Kirby's fixing that. I promise you, too. He's patrolling the sideline. Nobody in the world is getting in that referee's way when he's running down the sideline. Neither here nor there. No shots fired, but it is what it is. Kirby's going to adapt. So him having this bye for the second year in a row, I would feel nervous. I'd feel very nervous for whoever has to play Georgia. Again, it's less about the draw to me than it is about just who Georgia is right now. I feel pretty good saying that out loud. So the Dogs, whether it's Ole Miss, whether it's Tulane, whether it's the Kansas City Chiefs, like I feel pretty good about Georgia in that first game they'll play after the bye in the college football playoff. Hey, we appreciate y'all making this show what it is, man. Cannot stress that enough. It's been a phenomenal regular season. Transparently, on the traffic side, y'all have absolutely crushed it here. We are, year over year through the roof on what this show has been. So thank you to y'all for that. That is all y'all. And we are very privileged and honored to be able to talk in the microphone on this side of things and help head up this college football sicko community. But we're not done. We're never done. It's a year-round deal. But especially the college football playoff, we're going to go full steam ahead and finish this year the right way together. We're locking arms in the foxhole making this thing go. Caden Smith on the ones, the twos, the takes, also making this whole thing go. We love y'all. We're going to keep this party rolling. We will see y'all.